Pelosi blames Biden for election loss as finger-pointing intensifies. Former U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi has said Democrats might have fared better in Tuesday's election if President Joe Biden had exited the race sooner. Pelosi, one of the most powerful politicians in Washington, told the New York Times that had the president gotten out sooner, there may have been other candidates in the race. Her remarks are the latest finger-pointing from Democrats after the party lost hold of the White House and potentially both chambers of Congress on Tuesday. Pelosi is widely reported to have led the Democrats' push to oust Biden, who ended up leaving the race at the end of July. After weeks of pressure following a poor debate performance against Donald Trump, as Biden ended his campaign, he quickly endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris to take his place. She suffered a bruising defeat to President-elect Trump on Tuesday. Pelosi told the New York Times the anticipation was that, if the president were to step aside, that there would be an open primary. An open primary would have involved a number of Democratic candidates competing to be elected by party members to succeed Biden as their White House nominee. Pelosi argued that Harris would have done well in such a primary process and it would have made her stronger going forward. But we don't know that. That didn't happen. We live with what happened. The California Congresswoman, who was re-elected to her 20th term in the House on Tuesday, said, and because the president endorsed Kamala Harris immediately, that really made it almost impossible to have a primary at that time. If it had been much earlier, it would have been different. Results. Who did each state vote for? Democrats had bet on women showing up in force. They didn't. When does Trump become US president again? Speaking to political news outlet Politico, Harris aides also laid the blame at Biden's feet and said, he should have bowed out sooner. We ran the best campaign we could, considering Joe Biden was president, said one unnamed aide. Joe Biden is the singular reason Kamala Harris and Democrats lost tonight. Watch. Biden defends economy in first speech since election. However, a former Biden aide told Axios, another political news outlet, that Harris was making excuses. How did you spend $1 billion and not win? Said the aide, adding an expletive. An unnamed former Biden aide told Politico this week that former President Barack Obama's advisors were to blame because they publicly encouraged Democratic infighting to push Joe Biden out. Didn't even want Kamala Harris as the nominee. Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, a Democrat, blamed the election loss on those who plotted to oust Biden. For those that decided and moved to break Biden, and then you got the election that you wanted, it's appropriate to own the outcome and fallout, he told political outlet Semaphore in an interview. Congressman Tom Swotsy, New York Democratic congressman, said the election loss was partly due to the party's focus on being politically correct. He said the party had struggled to counteract Republican attack lines on anarchy on college campuses, defund the police, biological boys playing in girl sports, and a general attack on traditional values. Richie Torres, another New York Democratic congressman, posted on X, formerly Twitter, blaming the far left. He said radicals within the party had managed to alienate historic numbers of Latinos, blacks, Asians, and Jews from the Democratic Party with absurdities like defund the police, or from the river to the sea or Latinx. Independent Senator Bernie Sanders, who ran for president as a Democrat in 2016 and 2020, accused the party in a lengthy statement of abandoning working people. While the Democratic leadership defends the status quo, the American people are angry and want change, he wrote, and they're right. He argued Democrats probably wouldn't learn from the election outcome. But Democratic National Committee Chairman Jaime Harrison responded on X that Sanders' accusation was straight-up BS. Nearly a month ago, Kamala Harris appeared on ABC's The View in what was expected to be a friendly interview aimed at pitching herself to Americans who wanted to know more about her. But the sit-down was quickly overshadowed by her response to a question on what she would have done differently from incumbent President Joe Biden. Not a thing comes to mind. Harris's answer, which became a Republican attack ad-on loop, underscored the political headwinds that her Jumpstart campaign failed to overcome in her decisive loss to Donald Trump on Tuesday. Publicly, she conceded the race late on Wednesday afternoon, telling supporters do not despair, but soul-searching over where she went wrong and what else she could have done will likely take longer as Democrats begin finger-pointing and raising questions about the future of the party. Who did each state vote for? These are the 7 things Trump says he will do as president. Harris campaign officials were silent in the early Wednesday hours, while some aides expressed tearful shock over what they had expected to be a much closer race. Losing is unfathomably painful. It is hard. Harris campaign manager Jean O'Malley Dillon said in an email to staff on Wednesday. This will take a long time to process. As the sitting vice president, Harris was unable to untether herself from an unpopular president and convince voters that she could offer the change they were seeking amid widespread economic anxiety. Biden's baggage. After Biden dropped out of the race following a disastrous debate performance, Harris was anointed to the top of the ticket, bypassing the scrutiny of a primary without a single vote being cast. She began her 100-day campaign promising a new generation of leadership, rallying women around abortion rights and vowing to win back working-class voters by focusing on economic issues, including rising costs and housing affordability. With just 3 months until Election Day, she generated a wave of initial momentum, which included a flurry of memes on social media, a star-studded endorsement list that included Taylor Swift and a record-setting donation windfall. But Harris couldn't shake the anti-Biden sentiment that permeated much of the electorate. The president's approval rating has consistently hovered in the low 40s throughout his 4 years in office, while some 2/3 of voters external say they believe the US is on the wrong track. Watch Kamala Harris. Election outcome not what we fought for. Kamala Harris tells supporters never give up and urges peaceful transfer of power. A quick guide to Kamala Harris. Some allies have privately questioned whether Harris remains loyal to Biden in her bid to replace him. But Jamal Simmons, the vice president's former communication director, called it a trap, arguing any distance would have only handed Republicans another attack line for being disloyal. You can't really run away from the president who chooses you, he said. Harris tried to walk the fine line of addressing the administration's record without casting shade on her boss, showing a reluctance to break with any of Biden's policies, while also not outwardly promoting them on the campaign trail. But she then failed to deliver a convincing argument about why she should lead the country and how she would handle economic frustrations as well as widespread concerns over immigration. The president a fascist and campaigning with disaffected Republicans fed up with his rhetoric after Trump's former White House chief of staff, John Kelly, told the New York Times that Trump spoke approvingly about Adolf Hitler. Harris delivered remarks outside her official residence describing the president as unhinged and unstable. Kamala Harris lost this election when she pivoted to focus almost exclusively on attacking Donald Trump. Veteran Republican pollster Frank Luntz said on Tuesday night, external voters already know everything there is about Trump, but they still wanted to know more about Harris' plans for the first hour, first day, first month, and first year of her administration. It was a colossal failure for her campaign to shine the spotlight on Trump more than on Harris's own ideas. He added, ultimately, the winning coalition Harris needed to beat Trump never materialized, and voters' resounding rejection of Democrats showed that the party has a deeper problem than just an unpopular president. Never forget to write your comments, which are very important things for improving the next